Good evening, and welcome to tonight's broadcast. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful spring night. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that Array Music operates on ancient land that has seen and supported humanity for 15,000 years. It is the land of the Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and more recently the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The land is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Anishinaabeg Nation and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy to peaceably share and care for the resources in the Great Lakes region. Today, Toronto remains a meeting place and is still the home to Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. Thank you for joining us again this evening. Thank you for celebrating our 50th anniversary with us, and I hope you enjoy the broadcast.
"50 years ago today was a momentous event. April 20th, 1972, the very first concert of Array Music, Array 1, a program, a premiere of 6 new Canadian works by 6 young composers. Truly momentous occasion. And here we're celebrating 50 years later, and we have a whole series of wonderful things planned for you, both this evening and throughout the coming year. We're going to celebrate today. We're going to have an interview with Lori Kvosnick, who's made a short film about the history of Array Music. We've put together an e-zine, which was curated by David, called 50 Works for 50 Days. The digital e-zine was created by our executive director, Sandra Bell, and one of our composers that we've been building a special relationship with, Bruce Russell, is going to drop by for a chat. But first of all, David, let me ask you, Array Music, 50 years, wow. What has that meant for music in Canada and maybe elsewhere?
Well, I think it's funny. It reminds me, because I having spoken with several of the founders and having sort of founded my own group a while ago. At this point, it's you do these things because you want to, you just want to make your art in front of people under your own terms. You don't really stop and think what can grow out of it, and where it can lead you, and I think obviously these 6 composers were very ambitious, but I think that they're all rather amazed at what's happened and what it's grown to in the last over the last 50 years. I doubt that any of them on April 20th, 1972 was thinking that this anniversary would be celebrated 50 years later to the day. It's an amazing accomplishment. As far as what does Array mean to Canadian music and to contemporary music in general, I think Array occupies an interesting place, and that place has shifted over the years. I think right now, and I think for the last chunk of time, for me, the name Array really means a variety. It means in a variety of different things, and I think that's an appropriate. It remains an appropriate moniker for the artistic sort of interests of the group and the organization. It's not any one single thing. It's hard to pin down. It's an organization and a group of artists that has changed over time and has been a lot of different things. I think one of the through lines is experimentation and experimentalism, and it doesn't fit easily in, doesn't entirely fit easily within what I would kind of call the main line of Central European 20th and 21st century classical music. Array, and there's a few other there's other people around the world who sit out a little bit outside that and maybe comment on it, and it's a slightly different practice, I think, than what some of our peers have. And like I said, it is a hard thing to pin down. It's a hard thing to point out some specific thing and say, that's what Array does, and that's exactly what Array is, because I think historically, Array will then do something very different in response to that, or just automatically. I think it's a multifaceted organization. It's something that has a lot of different, literally different faces, that it does. Currently, right now, we have we have our more traditional classical music series, which is very much experimental composers and composers that might not be be the kind of composers you'd always expect to living composers you'd expect to see at Lincoln Center or Carnegie Hall or Roy Thompson. And there's also an improvisation end of Array. There's a sound art end of Array now, and performance art, the end of Array now. A lot of these things are enabled by the space that we've had for the last, I guess, 9 years, but they're also very much in the DNA of the organization itself, I think. And the space has allowed a lot of that to flower in a way that I think is an extension of what started 50 years ago, and what it grew into over time.
I think that's actually one of the strengths of Array is when you come, it's not like you're slipping into a warm bath. You are likely to be challenged. You're likely to hear something that you've never heard before in a way that is new and fresh and original. And I think that attracts a particular kind of person who wants to be part of the Array community. So I think that diversity is a great strength of Array's and has allowed it to continue to flourish and prosper and not stagnate into a particular artistic genre or a particular artistic point of view.
Yeah, I think we try not to have, I know I do as an artistic director, but I think also all my predecessors, to all of, going back to many of them that I know, I think they've tried hard not to have a house style, of music or art that we do. And I think it's shown over the years it's an eclectic group, it's an eclectic organization, and we kind of revel in that.
So, welcome everyone. Our 50th anniversary celebration continues, and I'm here with Lori Kosnick, who's a filmmaker and also a member of Array's board. So, welcome, Lori.
Thank you.
You've created a lovely short film about Array's history. So how did that come to be? And tell us more about that film.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say it's amazing to be in this space right now after 2 years, and to be here for the 50th year anniversary. And I've been on the board since 2018. And I really wanted to do something for the 50th year celebration. So I thought maybe I could do a video. And then that led to the archives and the treasures in the archives. So it's been really fun to, learn more about Array through the archives. And I have to thank Marlene, because she basically organized them. So it's by season, program, photos, posters, that type of thing. So it's made it much easier to do a little project for Array. So yeah, that's how it came about.
That's fantastic. So what did you discover in those archives that maybe delighted or surprised you or amazed you?
Well, I wasn't actually aware so much of Array's history. I knew of the present day as a creative hub, supporting experimental music, but I had no idea of the history. So that was huge for me, and it's all there. And how 6 composers basically got together and decided to, have their own performance in a professional hall with professional musicians. And that was really unheard of at that time for a young composer. And it was just really inspiring to learn about that.
Yeah, that was a time perhaps when there was more of a focus on the European composers.
Right.
And so actually having this bold move of having a group of young Canadians say, we want to be heard.
Yes.
It was the roots of Array and still is part of that. But you've done or working on some other very interesting projects. You're making a film about Michael Snow and an aspect of his work that many people are not familiar with, which is the musical side of Michael Snow. He's of course a world-renowned filmmaker, transformational in his impact, but he also has an amazing career and a long relationship with Array in the music biz. So tell us about the film you're making.
Yeah, well, first I have to thank Michael because he's the reason I'm probably at Array. Because I knew him as an experimental filmmaker. I had no idea he was a musician, and I was fascinated to find out that he was. And he opened up this whole world to me. So the film I've been doing for a number of years now, and it does focus on Michael's musical career. It goes back as far as 1948.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's been amazing. He's met up, I filmed him meeting up with different players from that time up to present day. And so that'll be part of the film. I've also worked with him, you know, in arranging to film different retrospectives in Europe and in the US. So that'll be part of the film, and I'm almost done.
Well, look, we're really looking forward to it, because I think, again, it brings a part of Michael to life that many people are not aware of. And maybe that'll attract some more people to, in the same way that Michael opened up experimental music to you, it may open it up to other people as well. And Michael, of course, you know, we continue to support the original CCMC collaborative, which performs monthly here at Array. It's an amazing journey into you know, artistic practice that perhaps isn't as well known as it should be. They're a wonderful group of improvisers, and because they've worked together for so many years, there's a passion, an intuition, an energy there that's really quite wonderful.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I think, you know, the idea of free improvisation in Toronto, Michael is a founder of that. And he brought a lot of the energy from New York to Toronto, and then with the Artist Jazz Band, and then CCMC. He's the last founder. And
Array continues that tradition with the Audio Pollination series.
Yes.
Which, if you haven't checked out, you should.
Yes.
You know,
it's amazing.
It again is people who want to get together and play together and improvise together, and it's always a surprise and delight.
Yeah, magic happens, I think.
Magic happens there. Okay.
Yes.
So, Lori, we're going to roll your film.
Great. I hope you enjoy it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Lesson 011101. Let's begin.
Now concentrate.
Control,
Concentration.
clarity.
Happy birthday, Ray Music.
Happy birthday, Array Music. It has been an honor and a privilege to be Array's artistic director for the last few years, and I look forward to the next 50. All right? Okay, ready? Say bye, James.
Bye.
We're celebrating 50 years of Array Music, 50 years of creation, of composing, of continuing to explore new directions. And Array's going to keep on doing that, engaging new communities, new sounds, and new ways of being. Thanks for being part of our journey.
Universe and the galaxy are in hyperlight communication across space and time.
Happy birthday to Red Music!
Hooray to Hooray for 50 years!
50 years!
Thank you to all the composers, musicians, board members, and audiences!
So David, you've got some ambitious plans to celebrate our 50 years past in our 51st year. Why don't you tell us a bit about what's upcoming and what the audience and community can look forward to?
I do. It's it's a little bit intimidating, but I figure if there ever was an opportunity or a reason to be ambitious, it's the 50th anniversary season. So we are looking at a season that both looks back to Array's past and also continues our, the work we do every year of moving forward and creating new work and building new communities. So the fall, October, starting in October, we'll be doing a 2-week focus on Array's history that will represent a huge swath of music from Array's repertoire, essentially from the last 50 years. Because one of the things, where Array has this enormous archive, and they'll commission a piece from a composer, and they'll play it once or twice, and then it'll sit, and maybe other people play it, but it doesn't really come back often to Array's repertoire. So it's an opportunity for me, which has been really a delight, to kind of comb through all of these old scores and from before my time with the organization, and find this music that really deserves to be played again, and deserves to be played again by Array. And so we're looking at a lot of major commissions from the past. We're the bulk of Array's artistic directors have been composers, so we are representing all of the Array artistic directors, from the founders through Henry Kucharczyk, Linda Smith, Alison Cameron, Martin Arnold, Rick Sachs. I'm not a composer, so you won't be hearing any pieces of mine, but there'll be a lot of old pieces from these people who are huge parts of Array's history. Also, major commissions from the past, pieces written for Array by James Tenney, by Gerald Berry, Michael Osterly, by Nicole Lizet. Lovely music that really needs to be kind of unearthed from the archives. Walter Zimmermann, like major international composers that Array maybe hasn't played for 20, 15, 20, even 30 years at times. So we'll be looking a lot back at a lot of that stuff. We're also trying to highlight some events from the past and partnerships from the past. We'll be focused on the Array space, but trying to do some events and other venues that we have historical relationships with. We'll be doing a concert celebrating our brand new, not brand new, but new to us piano, with Stephen Clark playing Array commissions and pieces by Horacio Radulescu that have been, that Array has presented in the past. Lots of different things, and so October is going to be busy. It's going to be at least 2 weekends of multiple sets of music per day, and probably also some concerts on Thursdays and Friday nights. You can just bring a 6-pack and camp out at Array for 3 days straight and just listen to music. It's going to be really fun. I'm excited to play. It's also a wonderful way to come back from the pandemic, and to really just dive into all this wacky chamber music from the past that I've wanted to play for years and just haven't had an opportunity. And then moving beyond that, so that's sort of a festival of Array's history. Beyond that, we are tackling one of the largest projects that we have tackled, at least in years, and we are involved in a co-production of the composer Du Yun's Pulitzer Prize-winning opera Angel's Bone, in collaboration with Lucy Music Theatre here in Toronto, as well as our partners in Vancouver, Renaissance Opera, Sound the Alarm Music Theatre, and Turning Point Ensemble. So we'll be Array Music and Turning Point Ensemble will be the pit band for this chamber opera. It's an incredible work. Dion is an old friend of mine, a longtime collaborator, and the piece is an allegory on human trafficking. It has an enormous amount of cultural, social relevance at this point, and there will be we'll be premiering the piece. We'll be doing the Canadian premiere of the piece in Vancouver in November, and it will travel to Toronto in March. of 2023. So it's a huge project. It's really exciting. It's a project that was postponed twice due to the pandemic. So it wasn't originally planned for the 50th year, but it's very appropriate, I think, that this sort of that this big event lands in the 50th season as well. And then we'll be ending the sort of major celebrations of the year with, actually, I've decided to do our annual For New Works concert, or our annual premieres concert, on April 20th of 2023. So it's a Thursday night, April 20th of 2023, the 51st anniversary of the first concert. We'll be doing another concert of premieres by emerging Canadian composers, just like the original group did 51 years ago. So it seems a very appropriate way to sort of end a season's worth of celebrations with Array, continuing to do what Array does best, and create new work and sort of spotlight new works by composers. In addition to that, we will also have our other regular series of Canadian CCMC, and continuing with Situated Sounds, and these sort of other series that we've developed in the last few seasons. So it's a big year.
In addition to that, there's a couple other programs that we're launching. We've long wanted to launch a community outreach program, which we call Music Hall, which again, COVID has delayed. But next year, we want to add to our third pillar of Array. In addition to our own programming, the space, we want to reach out into the community, and Music Hall will do that for us. And we, to celebrate the 50, we're going to do some fundraising with a program called 50 Plus, Friends Who Care, which will really engage you, the audience, in deciding how we program and how we distribute some funds to 10 artists with micro grants to enable them to create new art here in the Array space. And mentioning COVID, David, I should have thanked you earlier for joining us. I mean, you're on Zoom because you and your family came down with COVID just as we were planning to do this. So thank you for persevering through this and joining us today.
We're at the end of our quarantine, and we had a pretty light bout of it, I think, as I talked to other people who got through it. I personally had an extremely light bout of it. So yeah, we're doing pretty well, all things considered. But I was hoping to be in the Array space with you, Mark, for this particular conversation.
It's wonderful to be in the Array space again, and I know lots of people in the audience are looking forward to that as well. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
So David, Array has always been noted for its support of emerging composers. We've launched, in fact, a lot of careers, people around the world, whether it's Martin Arnold or Cassandra Miller or Linda Catlin Smith, all of them have played a significant role at Array. And we have a budding relationship with Bruce Russell, and we're going to do something very special with Bruce next year. So why don't you let people know about that?
Yeah, so I think probably many of the people who are watching this have run into Bruce and his music either for a long time now, or he's very recently come under an enormous amount of spotlight. Bruce is an incredibly brilliant composer and a unique voice, and somebody whose music I was just delighted to run into, and it is very, it's music that I think is very satisfying for Array. It seems like it's music that I want to play. It's music that he's written a lot for piano, and he's developed a wonderful relationship with Stephen Clark, Array's pianist, and it's music that Stephen loves to play. So we're really excited about having Bruce more involved. You've probably seen a bunch of music by Bruce in the last couple seasons. We did a portrait concert of his music in November 2020. And so kind of in looking forward, we've been wanting to have a composer in residence at Array for a long time. And so that we could have a relationship with a composer for multiple years and really bring a composer into the community, into Array's community, and have them involved in various ways, from writing new pieces, which would be obviously is a key part of it, to doing some curation and programming, to being involved with the Young Composers Workshop, to all of these sorts of things that we want to have a composer voice, another composer voice on board. And so it seemed very appropriate that this is something we officially start, for Array's second 50th, for Array's second 50 years. And it seemed like extremely appropriate that Bruce is the first composer in residence at Array Music. So we've been building this relationship with him for a couple of years now. So, we are still kind of in the process of figuring out exactly what the shape that this is going to take. We know he'll be writing a piece for us each year. We'll be premiering a piece of his a year from today at the For New Works program, and then he'll write a second piece for us in the following year. The residencies will be 2 years, and I think we're going to really use this time with Bruce, who's an incredibly deep thinker about music and about community. We're going to kind of use this time with Bruce to really shape the program, and then after a 2-year residency, we'll in collaboration with Bruce, we'll find another composer to add their voice to the mix. And the idea is that it's something that can turn over and will be like a constantly refreshed part of Array's world.
So welcome, Bruce Russell. As David announced a short while ago, Bruce will be our very first composer in residence, which is a new program for Array, and I think probably an exciting and daunting prospect for Bruce. But you've been a part of Array for a long time as an audience member, but more recently, we've become much closer in terms of our relationship. In terms of performing your works. Maybe you want to talk a bit about how that came about and what that's meant for you.
Yeah, and let me say as well, thank you, Mark, for having me here, and it's a great honor. Looking forward to this experience with Array. It will be a first for me as well as a composer in residence. My newest relationship with Array, as you mentioned, as an audience member, it goes back over 30 years. And in 2020, that changed into a more professional relationship, if you will, when Array staged the first full concert of my music in November of 2020. And that was a hugely exciting experience for me. Not only to hear my music, but to have it played by musicians the caliber of Wesley Shannon and Stephen Clark and Rick Sachs. It was just a great night for me. And that really came about in part because in that year, and it was the summer of sort of the reckoning with Black Lives Matter globally, and there was some increased attention to my music, and I found myself, scrambling to kind of to access some of the resources I would need to have my music performed. So I didn't know, for example, what rates I should charge to have scores purchased and performed, and I hit up David. Because I knew, or I had a tip from someone else that he had worked at Boozy and Hawks and knew about music publishing. So I emailed him. I don't think we'd actually met, and he was very generous and gave me some guidance there. And then a little bit later, it turned into, would you also like to have your music performed by Array Music? To which I immediately said yes. Something I had been dreaming about for most of that 30-year period I mentioned. So that's where it began, about a year and a half ago.
Well, I know David fell in love with your music. He really enjoys it, and I know that our musicians enjoy it. And I have a special memory from that performance at the end with your family.
Yes. I brought my oldest child, who has played music, does not have dreams of being a musician, but that was very exciting for them to be there in the audience for that first, and my 2 younger children were also watching, from home on the computer. So
yeah, it was a very touching moment for all of us who are watching.
Yeah.
And now we're deepening that relationship with the Composer in Residence program. What are you, I mean, this is new for all of us. What are your thoughts on what we might try to accomplish? What kind of programs we might put in place? What are your ideas, your dreams?
Well, I mean, it's very new, obviously. I just really, have just sort of spoken to David recently about it and been thinking about it, and also reflecting on what Array has done in relation to the community, the Array space, how that's been so pivotal for making an accessible venue for underrepresented communities. So that's important to me. I think in any kind of programming that's still reflected, that they're trying to sort of shake off any notion of it being an elite kind of thing in any of the programming that I might be involved with. I think also it's important to me to acknowledge perhaps some of what my influences have been. So I've been thinking as well as some of the work that could be brought back or brought over from recently written or even not recently written work. That could be involved. I do have a project or two also of my own that I've thought about bringing forward and seeing how that would fit into the scheme I just talked about, how it could be relevant for Array's audiences. I know that David mentioned Linda Catlin Smith, her involvement with the Young Composer Workshop, that we might have some synergy there, and I'm a dear fan of Linda and a friend of Linda. Since first seeing Array in her time as artistic director. So, part of me is like, wow, if we could get Linda's music in there, I mean, she's there a lot, it's not like there's a shortage of Linda's music being performed in the world today, which is great. It's fantastic to see how that has, come from sort of these beginnings and grown across the pond. So that's one thought. It's just early days, and I'm really excited to see what the possibilities could be.
So one of the things, I follow you on Facebook, and one of the things I've been intrigued at is you do everything from Sly and the Family Stone to experimental contemporary music. Is there any possibility we could weave some of those sounds and beats into some kind of a program here?
Oh, entirely. I mean, my sort of musical pedigree does include, everything from the vernacular to what was formerly known as, the high arts of music, or should be formerly known. And so, my own music is just as informed by popular music as it is by concert music of Europe and music of the African diaspora. So that definitely would happen. I've had a lot of involvement with DJ culture, so there could be some also involvement of electronic. But yes, there are no barriers for me. I really believe in this idea of a post-genre world, and a space like this and an organization like this is best positioned to take advantage of that and promote that.
Yeah, and we've certainly supported turntablists here. And so that completely fits into the kind of ideas and thoughts of the array of music that we want to present.
Yeah. I don't want to drop any names, but I definitely have people in mind. I just don't want to put anybody on blast. So, but there's just so much talent in orbit with and involved with Array. So it's, again, an honor to be able to have a part in that.
Well, we look forward to you bringing some of that diversity into Array. That's very much what we want to do as an organization in the future. So thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, thank you all for joining us this evening. I hope it's been a stimulating tour through Array's past and future. We owe a lot to a lot of people, to the artistic directors who've carried the torch for many, many years, to all of the artists, musicians, composers, donors, and arts councils, foundations. We've had terrific support from many, many, many people to help us continue to provide the kind of experience, the kind of world that Array creates. So thank you to everyone for joining us. David?
Yeah, and I certainly couldn't do, the artistic directors certainly couldn't do our jobs without Array's staff. I mean, I personally need to thank Sandra Bell, Array's executive director, Connor McSweeney, and Dan Tapper, who are behind the scenes, behind the camera right now, recording this. And previously Kelly Mitchell, who was our previous tech manager. These people who are all people who devoted a lot of time and a lot of energy to Array, and we couldn't do without as much credit, I think, as those of us in the artistic director role tend to get. And I think I certainly couldn't do this job without any of them. So thank you. Yeah, and it's lovely to be here and talk about Array. We're not done with our 49th season yet. So don't, so please, come back and check out what we're doing. Where there's the Young Composers Workshop, which is a collaboration this year with the Evergreen Club Contemporary Gamelan. And it'll be really interesting in engagement with like sort of colonialism and classical music and the gamelan. There'll be some difficult questions dealt with, and we're excited to have that conversation. And then our last presentation of the year is the last Array Presents performance, which is Zuan Yi, incredible interdisciplinary artist here in Toronto. And this is in collaboration with the Museum of Contemporary Canadian Art. And that's going to be very exciting. So stay tuned to Array's website and check out the dates and come and join us.
And to 50 more years, hip hip hooray!